I'm going to talk about adaptation today, and that's not because the Environment Agency doesn't have anything to do with mitigation, but this is my big challenge at the moment, so this is a great opportunity to get some insights. I mean, I think it is an agenda that has come of age. Adaptation is no longer the poor cousin of mitigation. Adaptation is really about preparing for the consequences of climate change without forgetting that obviously there are limits to the amount that we can adapt to, and so mitigation remains a very important aspect of all our work. The EA has an expanding role. It's a regulator and it's also a provider of advice to a wider community. On mitigation, it leads on emissions trading, so it engages with industry and companies to reduce emissions, but it also has a wider role around energy efficient, pollution control, and trying to think about lower carbon options in terms of managing the environment. On adaptation, we have a big role in making sure that we take account of climate change in all the Environment Agency's decisions and all our interactions with our core constituencies in the water sector and industrial sectors. We've just been given a new duty by government which extends that role to providing advice and support to others to take account of climate change in their own work. And that takes us very much outside our core kind of comfortable zone of water resources, flooding, managing environmental incidents. And we really need to be talking to people in the built environment, in infrastructure, in health and well-being, really stretching us into new areas that we've not been so prevalent in before. And this is a really good opportunity to go out and talk to other people and work through others to deliver this new role. The Environment Agency has worked with the third sector in a number of ways, not me personally, but as an organisation it does have a joint statement with Natural England and the Forestry Commission on some high-level principles of how to go out there and engage and improve communication, engage and deliver collectively in partnerships. And this is really about trying to deliver wider benefits than just around the environment, but think about the social and economic impacts of the work that we do. Another example is the Building Trust initiative. The Environment Agency has built a toolkit and some guidance to help staff go out and engage with communities, particularly around some contentious issues, but also in delivering solutions. So one example that I found is in the southwest region in developing a flood risk scheme of actually going out and sharing the actual problem with the community and helping come to a collective solution about the best way of tackling that problem, and then actually implementing it with the community so that you've actually got a series of new sluice gates which are actually operated by volunteers in the community and helped maintained by the Environment Agency. And then lastly, my third example of things that I'm looking at to try and bring into the whole climate change agenda is river basin planning. There's a whole series of panels around the country where all the people involved in catchment management of rivers and water bodies come together to actually understand the pressures on that catchment, so the problem, and actually trying to develop partnership solutions to those pressures. And that's really trying to tackle some of the trade-offs that these water bodies are used for a multitude of purposes and satisfy different constituencies, and actually having to come to solutions that are largely consensus-based and therefore have the buy-in for a sustainable implementation. This is our concept of how people move through an adaptation pathway. It's quite an evidence way of looking at it. I work in the evidence directorate of the Environment Agency. You could equally think about it in a capacity building context, that essentially people have different needs, both in terms of what their own capacity, but also the information that they need to be provided with in order to pass through this learning pathway. And this is built up through our own experience as a practitioner of adaptation, and in now thinking about how we translate that into other sectors. I guess this slide is really trying to show that actually some research by DEFRA shows that people are generally at the lower end. They're really just starting to think about what adaptation means for them as organisations. And so there's something quite important around developing the case for adaptation and understanding what type of support and information people need to progress along this pathway. I confess that in putting together these slides, it was the first time I'd really engaged with what the third sector looks like, and realising it's not a homogenous group of organisations, and that potentially we need to work in quite tailored ways with that community to provide needs at different stages of that pathway. It's not just a one-size-fits-all job, and there's a real important mapping exercise that needs to happen to work out who we engage with and when to help us move people down this pathway. I think the other point to make is that many of you will need to be moving down this pathway too, so you're also practitioners as well, not just a conduit of messages. And that's a very important thing, that actually leadership is something that actually is one of the most persuasive ways of convincing people. So it's the same slide, but really just trying to put up there that I think there are these different roles that we can work together on in terms of helping organisations move down this learning pathway. I think Becca kind of said that actually there's some really good work around the awareness raising, and I would very much agree with that. And it's really, trying to understand how we move down that pathway into those kind of, in the areas where we need more capability around leadership, sharing experiences. And then, very importantly at that end, that feedback loop of your experience of talking to others and trying to act yourselves, of feeding that back up to us and to government to look at where there's need for policy improvements, new information sources, better support. So we do work on climate change through some partnerships, and I don't know how many of you are aware of Climate UK, which is a collection of regional partnerships that have various sources of funding from the Environment Agency, but businesses and local organisations. And really, these are I suppose I would describe these as interest groups, in that people have been brought together across sectors to work on single issues, and that's been a very, very powerful source of awareness raising and sharing of information. But I now think that we need to look broader than this. Or at least not everybody is represented in these partnerships. If we're trying to extend into these new sectors of built environment, infrastructure, health, tourism, we need to be more outward facing and go and find those new groups of people who can act as communicators and deliverers of adaptation. So in summary, this concept of an adaptation learning pathway, and really looking at how the needs of organisations change as they move along that pathway, and aligning government and Environment Agency programmes to help seed and drive and that really trying to do a mapping exercise of the third sector to really understand how different types of organisation can be used to support delivery. And then finally, really a message to myself that need to think much more intelligently about how we go out and work with the third sector in a more targeted and tailored way to deliver our outcomes. Thank you.